Welcome, everyone, to the Cultivating Compassion Education series hosted by Compassionate Care ALS. It is our privilege and honor to have with us today Roshi Joan Halifax. Roshi Joan is Buddhist teacher, founder, and head teacher of the Upaya Zen Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She is a social activist, author, and in her early years was an anthropologist at Columbia University and the University of Miami School of Medicine. She is a pioneer in the field of end-of-life care. She has lectured on the subject of death and dying at many academic institutions and medical centers around the world. She has received many awards and honors from institutions around the world for her work as a social and environmental activist and in the end-of-life care field. Welcome, Roshi Joan, and I will now turn it over to our founder, Ron Hoffman.
Thank you, James. Oh, welcome, Roshi Joan. I met Roshi Joan back in May of 2003 at the memorial service of my dear friend, Stephen Foster, who became my teacher and mentor. I only knew Stephen for around 6 months. And I had heard through Stephen and his wife, Meredith, and their dear friend and colleague, Gigi Cole, Roshi Joan is someone you need to meet. So that was my first meeting. And fortunately, thereafter, I was able to avail myself to her teachings at Upaya. Honestly, there's no one any more significant in my life that has assisted me in my work, whether she's aware of it or not, than Roshi Joan. And for her to be here with us, I'm incredibly grateful. You know, the one thing all of us here have in common, whether we're living with ALS, we're a caregiver, whether you're part of our team, friends, colleagues, is our mortality. We're all going to die one day. And so what I'm going to put out there in the beginning, which is something I often converse with, navigate with, when able to help guide people through, is the mortality of our own mortality, becoming more familiar with our own mortality, which I think is so incredibly important, not just for us, but in the world of healthcare. For if our physicians aren't willing to become more familiar with their own mortality, in my view, then how do we best tend to the people that we're serving? So, Roshi Joan, welcome. And I would ask if you would just to maybe talk into that just a little bit, the importance of all of us, whether we're physicians or lay people, in becoming more familiar with the reality of our own mortality. Thank you for being here, Roshi.
Thank you so much, Ron. And thank you, Brenda, and also James, for everything you do for this community. It's really an honor to be here. And also, I learned so much the last time I was with your community about, the journey of ALS. And I deeply appreciate hearing not just from this person whose mouth is now wagging, but I really want to hear from you all. And just to say, I drove up with Dr. Wendy Lau to the Prajna Mountain Forest Refuge. So you see me bundled up. I'm in the very cold kitchen of an old log cabin, and you'll probably hear the fire sparking in the background. Hopefully the temperature will rise so I can get out of my coat, but if not, that's also fine. But I just wanted to let you know I'm up at 9,400 feet. And thanks to Starlink, thank you, Elon Musk, for at least this. I'm able to access, sorry, I see people laughing. I'm able to have, good internet connection while surrounded by 3 million acres of national forest. And you might ask, why would I want to be in this environment? And partly it is because it allows me the opportunity to explore the truth of impermanence. And this is, right in the question that Ron is asking. Last week, I was up here and there was no snow on the ground. It was the end of fall, and the aspens had dropped all their beautiful golden leaves. So the brilliance of fall was suddenly non-visible. It had disappeared. And then a few days ago, a huge snowstorm came in. And when Dr. Lau was driving me up on this very precarious road, and on the icy road, mountain with really steep exposure on my left side, you think about the truth of impermanence. Anything could happen at any moment. And sometimes the truth of impermanence is a huge ally. It's like that toothache when it's gone, or you get your knee replacement and it's a blessing. And sometimes it is an evocation of great sorrow, particularly when loss of a particular kind is involved. And, I think most of you understand that I'm a longtime Buddhist teacher. And so, one of the things that we understand in this practice that we do is the essential teaching of the Buddha. One of the most important aspects has to do with coming to terms with the truth of impermanence. And that coming to terms with the truth of impermanence also, and Plato pointed this out, is coming to terms with the truth of our mortality, that this body that has been our friend and our enemy, and now for those who have ALS, is, this very what can I say? Profound teacher, as the body becomes less and less accessible. And as we see our capacities begin to drop away, as the body is diminished in its ability to actually meet the world as we normally meet it. And there you have it. Whether you're in the slow grind of ALS, or whether you are in the whiplash of a bullet to the heart, there you have it, the truth of our mortality. We are all mortal. Everything that we care about or don't care about will pass from us. And that brings a certain quality into our lives. For those who are not completely freaked out about the truth of impermanence and the fact that we will all die, it allows us to actually prioritize, to choose deeply what matters for us, who matters for us, how what matters for us can be connected to, even as the body is in this diminishing state. And what is important for us to do with the capacities we have left, whether it is to express love or to offer forgiveness, or whether it is also to understand that there are choices we can make, but there are some places where we cannot have a choice. And so we sit with the truth of that. And can that teach us? And, you know, Plato wrote, he's the bedrock of the spiritual life is our encounter with our mortality. And, you know, I could say that fairly calmly as a somewhat healthy 80-year-old person, where my own mortality, you know, has not presented itself as vividly as has the mortality for those who are in the midst of the ALS journey. So, you know, I speak here in a certain way as a non-expert, though I have contemplated the truth of my mortality and the truth of impermanence, you know, throughout many decades. But when the lived experience of seeing the truth of one's death and the diminution of one's capacities to meet life in the way that we met life, when we have that experience vividly, or when someone close to us is in the midst of that experience, it can be profoundly earth-shaking for us. Turn ourselves, you know, inside out. And my own beloved teacher, the anniversary of his death was a few days ago, Roshi Bernie Glassman. 4 years ago, he died. I think we think he died actually of sepsis. He had cancer and had a stroke, and he went. And he offered many things to me over the years of our work together. And one of the most important gifts that he shared was the 3 tenets. And I want to share those with you now because they have been so important in my work with dying people and in my work as a social activist. And the first tenet is that of not knowing. You know, how can we not resort to narratives, scripts, negative anticipations or positive anticipations? How can we not find ourselves in the grip of a trope that is part of, you know, whatever our society or our culture or our situation is, you know, giving us? How can we do that? How can we open ourselves to the precariousness of our human experience, the radical uncertainty of our human experience? I mean, if you have ALS, it might have passed down through your family, and you had some anticipation that this might be your life too. But how can you actually come into a place, a kind of beginner's mind, as you sit with the truth of this journey, or also you come alongside as a caregiver, not without a heavy heart often, but how can you actually sit with your beloved spouse or child or parent in the grip of this journey with a kind of beginner's mind, not with the filters of fear, not with the adverse anticipations, but just being deeply open to whatever their experience is in this moment and presence it fully and without fear, resting in not knowing. So that's the first tenet. Being with not knowing. And the second tenet is bearing witness. And when Bernie was talking about bearing witness, it didn't mean being a bystander. It really referred to this ability to not separate from the sorrow and the joy that is in one's lived experience, in one's presence, in one's heart life, and also in the life of those whom we are serving. And what is it to offer this deep, unfiltered, unmediated, grounded presence to another? And this is what Bernie would call bearing witness to the whole catastrophe, not just the good parts or not just the bad parts, but really being open deeply to exactly where people are, or where this person is, or where you are in this very moment. And then the third tenet. The third tenet is compassionate action or loving action or healing, really based on not knowing and bearing witness. We've created this foundation of deep openness to our fear, to our dread, to our sorrow, to the rare beauty that perhaps is present, to the wonder that is present. And we sit with not knowing, we bear witness, we connect to things as they are, and then out of that comes loving action. So I wanted to say that, for my own experience of having come alongside so many dying people over the years, and also people who are grieving deeply, that this process, of kind of getting out of my way, knowing that the end is going to come. There will be phase shift. The truth is that death will touch all of us. But how can I connect to this moment as it is? And before you wonderful people came on, Brenda mentioned, asked a really important question, which is, she said, in our community, sometimes people have a long practice. Their practice doesn't sustain them when they're in the grip of this journey. And I can understand that. First, I want to say, sometimes it's a little late to begin a practice once you've got your diagnosis. It's really like way late. You can do some things that might help downregulate, might generate compassion. They're wonderful contemplative interventions or techniques. But my, urging for you is to begin this process of cultivating mindful resilience now. Don't wait till you're in the hospital bed or in a wheelchair. I urge you. And also to understand that the journey of practice is a journey that, like any journey, it will have its ups and its downs. And there have been times, I've been practicing, I've been a Buddhist since the mid-60s. And, you can imagine, I've had some dry spots. I've had despair. I've experienced depression. I've had times where I just thought, I cannot do this. I don't want to do this. But if we look at not just the kind of Sunday sit on the cushion kind of practice, but a different view of practice, everything is practice. Just showing up here in this moment being with our breath, connecting to our presence and to me, what I'm saying, remembering really why you're here, why you chose to show up on this Sunday, cultivating actively a motivation that is not just about you, that you're here because you want to serve, you want to wake up, you want to not have your life in a total tangle. And I have to remind myself as an old practitioner of this all of the time. I swear, I go off the rails. I think, this kind of moment of selfishness or cynicism or despair or the politics that we're in and the upcoming election and Ukraine and the climate catastrophe, the list is really long. And then if you have a catastrophic illness, that's tough. And yet, come back, please, again and again. How can I use this life in order to be of benefit to others? So we're not just sunk into this experience of this deep self-centeredness only, but to understand that, we're here on this earth. Even when people talk to me, for example, about hastening death, and I'm not against hastening death. I think you need to know that. There's human suffering that I have witnessed where the greatest mercy would be to actually facilitate a transition out of the body into, I don't know where, but it's deep mercy. But while we're alive, while we have still some breath in this body, even if it's constructed breath, a person who is in the ICU, not aware at all, still has the potential to elicit at a preconscious level compassion in those who are serving that person. And that is of deep benefit. So we're always, in this process of deep inquiry as we look at why are we here? How can I serve? Even if I need care 24/7, can I receive that care in a way that elicits a sense of mutuality, where there's a connection, where there's a kind of opening, where the person who's serving me is also served. So motivation is really important. And I just got back from India, wonderful meetings with the Dalai Lama, and he returned to this point again and again, how essential altruism is, how important it is to always go back to why are we here? How can I serve? What can I do to be of benefit? Even if it's just the blink of an eye, even if it's just the smallest gesture of connection, knowing that as long as we're here on this earth, in whatever kind of body that we're in, there is an opportunity for blessing. There's an opportunity for blessing. So these are the two things I want to just say, in relation to Brenda's question about practice, everything is practice. Everything. And the two most important things is this ability to be really, okay, I'm going to be right present right here. And two is our motivation, our deep aspiration. And so anyway, I wanted just to, because I thought your question was so important. And you don't have to sit on the cushion. I'm telling you. It's every opportunity of every moment is this kind of gift that we're given to be right here in this moment. So anyway, that's what Ron, thank you for your mortality question. And also, Brenda, the sort of, as we were meeting before, all of us came together for your wonderful question. Yeah, so I'd be so grateful to hear from you all. And I'm gonna open the chat stream. Yeah, Meg says it's never too late to begin a practice. And yes, absolutely. I totally agree, Meg. And yet, you know, what Brenda said is some of the people in the community, they've had a long experience with practice, but it's just not working. So that's where so my angle in was that. And yes, there are many wonderful doorways of practice that can open even in those final days or weeks or months. So if you want to put questions in the chat or raise your hand, many people with ALS are not afraid of impermanence. We are concerned of being a burden. Can you comment on this? Lane, I think that's such an important question. And what I'd like to do is to invite the community to reflect on that question before I, opine, and it's just an opinion. And you can put your reflection in the chat or raise your hand. It'd be nice to hear from some of you directly, but I'd love to hear from some of you. And I might call on some of you as well.
Yeah. And folks, please take this opportunity, please. Thank you.
So Katrina Bird has her hand up. I'll unmute you, Katrina. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. My partner, Dora, of 23 years, passed away from ALS 76 days after she was diagnosed. And it, to Lane's question or comment, it was hard, but she was not a burden. Taking care or caring for her has changed my life so much. There is this connection that I have now. I'm no longer afraid of death, and I'm no longer afraid of life. So, I thank her for many things, but one of those things that I thank her for is trusting me to be on that journey with her, because I was the only one, and I was alone. And I was alone with her when she passed. And it's heartbreaking, but it is so beautiful. And I'm so thankful. There's nothing else I can do in my life that will ever be as beautiful as to care for her. And thank you so much thank you all so much for listening.
Oh, Katrina, thank you for sharing in the way that you have. And also, I would love to ask you a question, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. Katrina, what do you feel? Maybe you should just mute yourself while I ask the question. What do you feel was the most important lesson that you were given in the course of your partner's death?
I feel the most important lesson was that everything will be fine.
Mm.
In our life. I was always a type one, is what she called me, and worried about every single thing. And I had to know how everything was going to work out. And then on November 18th, 2019, we were presented with this diagnosis,
Mhm.
and I had no power. I couldn't control this. I couldn't say how, she was going to die or what medicines were. Nothing worked. It was like standing on quicksand. One day, we went outside. I helped her outside. She was having trouble walking. And we have two dogs. One was tied in the back, and he's a really, really big guy. And then with this little bitty dog that I could handle, the dog and her. Well, the big dog, the 90-pound dog, flipped his leash and came running because he wanted to be a part of us, our walk. But everybody in the neighborhood is afraid of him, and people were threatening to shoot him, if he ever gets loose. And so I've got my partner with ALS, and I've got this big, huge, excited puppy dog. And I was very overwhelmed. And I think right there is where I got the lesson. He just wanted to be with us. I was able to leash him. I was able to keep a hand on Dora and on the other puppy dog.
Mm.
And so it's worked out fine. And I think that was one of my first lessons in our journey, to show me that, yes, this is going to work out.
This is a powerful message, I think, for all of us. We can't control what's going to happen in the next moment. And you were given this gift that things work out. Things work out. And you're being with her in such a gracious way. I mean, this is the feeling I get from you. I'm feeling maybe kind of micromanaging and a little not comfortable. And then realizing the best thing that I can do is to be present and come alongside.
Yes, that is an accurate description. Thank you.
Well, I thank you for sharing. I really, I'm in awe.
Can we go to Lindsay?
Yeah, Lindsay, hi.
Hi. So, as someone with ALS, I I do struggle occasionally with feeling like a burden. I think every human who ever lived has moments of that feeling. But I know that we are in a special situation because we are dependent upon people. And I like to think of it more as an interdependence, that I have gifts that no one else has. And it might just be that I can sit there and smile or listen to someone and ask them how they're doing. Um, I I think you really touched upon something when you were talking about being of service. I might not be able to go and work in a soup kitchen, but I personally have been in my 10 years with ALS, I've been studying herbal medicine as a way to help myself, but I can also help many other people in my community. And yeah, I might not be able to make the remedies in my own hands, but I can help my caregivers through it. I can teach them what I know. Um, and we can do things together. And I really feel like when you approach sharing time with your caregivers as an opportunity to share and give of yourself as well as receive, that that can really help release the sense of being a burden. Also, take a nap. You know, usually I feel like a burden when I'm tired.
Lindsay, you are a star. You are a total star. So thank you for being so awake and seeing so deeply, and seeing both the value and also the teaching that comes from what it means to receive care, but also what it means to shine out from that care. And this issue around mutuality, I think, is one that you have realized in such a beautiful way. You know, that you, with 10 years with this diagnosis, give back again and again, and it nourishes you. So thank you. I'm just in awe of you.
Thanks. I also feel like when I'm able to give of myself, it feeds me, and that's what's helped me be here for so long.
Well, maybe this is a really important point that we should reflect on. That your own process, how you work, your journey with ALS, by actualizing mutuality, by giving back, has had the effect of, for you, prolonging your life so you can continue to give. And you just gave us a great gift this morning. I thank you with all my heart. Yeah. So I'd like to invite us to have a breath for Lindsay and with Lindsay. And you are beautiful, Lindsay. Just beautiful.
Oh, goodness, Roshi, we have several people in the chat.
So Suzanne, you say we have a brand new baby granddaughter born a few hours ago. It's difficult to feel loving new life and losing life at the same time.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd love to invite you to share some more, Suzanne, if you're comfortable with that.
Um, I don't have my picture on because I'm crying. Oh, oh, it's just kind of a contradiction that my house is full of baby equipment and wheelchairs and toilet seats, all that stuff. So we had one grandchild a couple months ago, and now we just had one early this morning. And I wish I could spend more time with the grandchild, but it's difficult. This is just such a juxtaposition, of new life and then of losing life. It just, I kind of get bogged down into it and trying to find a happy medium.
What might
Oh.
the happy medium look like?
Well, I guess I just like to be a joyful, active grandparent. I'd like to be able to enjoy things like the baby nursery and clothes and, first this and first that, but it just kind of gets overshadowed by grief,
Yeah.
that I feel. Um, and then just feeling like eventually I'm going to be the only grandparent. And, they're just thoughts, they're just bad, scary thoughts. And I know better than to let them get the better of me, but still they lurk. So I guess I'd like to live a dual life, caregiver for my husband with ALS, and then also, grandmother and mother to my girls that are mothers. So it's just a weird time, you know. So we all go out like a crew for a walk with the wheelchair, the baby strollers, the dogs, everything. I mean, people do a double take when they see us coming down the road. But that's life. I feel acceptance from most people because most people know us around our town and my neighborhood. But I kind of just feel like I'm just not joyful enough for my children and my grandchildren.
And who's saying you're not joyful enough?
That's me.
Okay,
Just, yeah.
that's okay. I mean, it's good to know you're the one who is measuring. How do you think others perceive you?
I think they perceive me as someone that's carrying on, that's dependable, that's capable, that's picking up the slack and the reins, driving and making appointments, and I host the children over here, and everybody kind of helps out when they're here, brings food, things like that, so I'm not overburdened. So I think it's just me that feels the joylessness.
And what if you were to touch that joylessness in a way like a grandmother? Not turning away from it, not judging it, but bring this kind of grandmother energy to being in touch with your sense of joylessness.
I mean, to create my own joy for myself through my role.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working on that. I think I am. I try to stay engaged with, just like Lindsay said, I think it was before, I try to stay engaged with whatever I can do and provide. I try to make the most out of relationships with everyone, take advantage of people that ask if I need any help, or that just want to talk and say, how are you? And so that's the best I can do. I just feeling it today because of the new baby.
Yeah, I don't know ALS and I don't know new baby. So, you know,
Okay.
I can't imagine what, and you're helping me understand what it means to have new life and life receding in, you know, this, you know, in a moment in one's heart. But I want to go back to something that I have a feeling you're perceived as a really good person.
I'd like to think so. I hope so.
Well, I hope you can receive my words. You know, as you described all that you're doing, both for the grandchild and for your partner, for your husband, you know, what you're doing is what a really good person does. And it's just, it's natural. You're doing what is natural. I know it's weird to say, it's tough to really come into the realization that this is what a good person does. A good person serves, a good person shows up, a good person can also feel despair and sorrow, and in the next breath can feel great tenderness and feel deeply engaged with meeting whatever the situation is. But I'm hearing a real good person, a really good person talk.
Thank you. That's reassuring. I appreciate it.
You know, I'm going to just mention one more thing. This is maybe I'm out of line in saying this, but I hope you can receive the care of others, including my feedback, which is coming from a real heartful place. I hope you can receive it.
Thank you. I'll try harder.
Listen to you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Okay. And let me just see, you turned your camera on. Could you just say a few more words so I can see your face?
Okay. We had the little baby girl,
Oh,
and her name is Remy Rose Cox. And she's tried to make a go at the birth center, but my daughter kind of gave up at 9 centimeters and demanded the epidural. So there she went off to the hospital after the whole birth center thing. And that's okay. We're going to go see her later this afternoon.
well,
It'll be a really good thing. Charge our batteries.
right. There is a beautiful resource in your grandchild.
Yes.
But also, I think exploring with your husband where you can resource yourself as you care for him, which is why I say you're a really good person.
Thank you.
And you're beautiful. Thank you for opening your camera. It's nice,
Okay.
your wet cheeks.
Roshi, if I can interject, I know Susanna and Michael really well. Susanna is a really, really good person, and she tends to her husband in miraculous ways. So it's good to see you, Susanna.
Thanks, Ron.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing so openly.
Okay.
So I'd like to invite us to take a breath for of appreciation for all that Suzanne is holding. birth, life, and death, birth, life, and death. All you're holding, take a breath. Thank you so much. Thank you. We have time maybe for one more reflection. I see Dana has her hand raised.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's shared and everybody who's on the call and maybe hasn't said anything. You're still part of the conversation, and I really feel it from people. It just feels very supportive to me. So thank you, everybody. I wanted to just react to a couple of things that Katrina and Lindsay said, and something Katrina said that, lack of control was very difficult for her. And it was the same way with me being a caregiver for my husband. He was diagnosed in April of 2015 and died in January of 2018. And I had to let go of wanting to control everything. And I also had to let go of not asking for help and feeling like that was some sort of a weakness to ask for help. It taught me a lot, and how asking for help was a way to connect to people in a very profound way. And I don't think I'd ever understood that. The other thing Katrina said that really resonated with me is not only being not afraid of death, but not being afraid to live. And that is definitely something that I have come to, and it's changed my life to just go out, just do things, just go out, connect with people, just do things and not worry about it so much. And then finally, one of the things that Lindsay said, and I don't think I ever really realized this, but I think that's one of the things that kept my husband going too, that giving of himself fed him. And I saw people coming to him almost like he was a confessor or a Buddha or the guru that people were coming to. And people just started coming to him for counsel. And it was a way that he gave back in a very profound way during his illness. And I never really thought of it until Lindsay said that was really his way of that mutuality of giving back. And it was a really beautiful thing to see through his illness. So thank you, Lindsay, for making me realize that. Appreciate it.
Dana, thank you. You have really summarized in such a clear way the gifts of this journey. And, the question of burden is there. And yet I feel that, you're a kind of example of how one can possibly open to the journey as a caregiver and be deeply enriched.
Absolutely. It was difficult, but I didn't feel like it was a burden. It was something I could do to show my husband my love for him, was to be there when he needed me most. So it wasn't really a burden.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have time for just, 4 minutes for maybe one more question or sharing. This has been, personally, I have to say, so rich for me. I've deeply appreciated what you, Dana, and Lindsay, and Suzanne have shared. And anyone else like to share before we conclude our session?
Roshi, there's a couple of in the chat. Is it very okay to allow yourself time for grief amidst new life?
Well, of course. I don't think that we actually can experience new life without also being open to the truth of grief. Grief is so humanizing. And it is essential we not turn away from it, and that, it's not something that is so easy in our culture. And people say, it's time for you to get over it. Well, no. Grief is our companion in humanization. And I just say, it's not a destination that we visit and leave. It's more a country that we're part of, and that we should really never turn away from. Deeply connecting with the truth of our grief is, the philosophers, the poets, the great teachers, even the nuns who stood next to the body of the Buddha and whose tears fell on the Buddha's body. That expression of grief really is an expression of our deep humanity. So that's just my opinion. But I want us not to turn away from the gift of grief. So, friends, I think we're at the end of this session. I want to thank you again, Ron and James, Brenda, and your team for the work that you do in this community, and also, allowing me to offer a few crumbs, and allowing me to learn from the extraordinary people in your circle. It's truly an honor.
Thank you so much, Roshi. Thank you.
And I hope to return in a year, Buddha willing, and maybe with have another session a bit like this instead of a kind of download, which I do a lot of. But I really appreciate what you all bring to my own learning. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roshi Joan. Blessings and good fortune.